I can speak for everybody watching when I say that we would all love to be more productive, not for the sake of being more productive, but just so that we can have more downtime, more fun time. The more productive we can be when we are doing all the things, whether that's working, stuff around the house, looking after your children, whatever it may be, the more productive we can be during that time, then the more time we can have to do the things we want to do. And let's face it, who doesn't want to do the things that we want to do? I know I want to be doing more of the things I want to do and less of the things I have to do. And in order to achieve that, we're all looking for productivity hacks all the time. So today on our latest episode of Real Talk with Rhi, I am Rhi, by the way. Hi, if you are new around here, I am Rhi from Real Talk with Rhi and mummyoffour.com and my other channels, Mummy of 4 UK and Mummy of 4 Does Disney and all those things. But today, right here today, we're going to talk about the mistakes that people make. And I'm going to just stick my hand up right here, right now and say that I have made all, if not all of these mistakes myself. I think a lot of us can relate, but these are things that ruin our productivity. When we think we're trying to be productive, these are the invisible blocks that get in our way and stop us being productive and therefore stop us having the free time to do all the things that we want to do. So the first one is a little bit of a myth, and it's multitasking. Multitasking is kind of a myth because ultimately, if we are multitasking, we are flitting between two or more things. So the thing that we are supposed to be doing is not getting all of our energy and attention, and therefore it will end up taking longer, or we will end up missing things. We will end up not giving it our full attention and not doing it properly, and then maybe we have to go back and finish doing the thing. So multitasking, although it's always been kind of put on a bit of a pedestal, doesn't it? Oh, she's such a great multitasker. But it is a myth and it is ruining your productivity. So if the takeaway we can take from this is that, right, I'm going to be doing this thing for this time. And while I'm doing this thing, I'm just going to do this thing. I'm not going to multitask. You will get the thing done better and more efficiently. And you are more likely to be able to move on having filed the thing, whatever it may be, and not have to look at it again, which will ultimately mean you will have more free time. You will have more free time. I would say there are exceptions to this rule. There are some exceptions. So for me, mindless tasks would be the exception to the multitasking rule. And quite specifically, if I am cooking, cleaning, decluttering, organizing, that kind of thing, in order to keep me on track with doing that thing, I like to have my AirPods in. I tend to just have one at a time. And I like to listen to a podcast, maybe one like this. I like to listen to a podcast, or I like to listen to an audiobook. I sometimes listen to music, or I would talk on the phone to my best friend. And while I am doing those mindless tasks that have to be done but don't require a great deal of my brain power, but my brain is bored and wants to stop doing the thing, go and do something else, I would say that using that kind of entertainment or using that time to learn something through a podcast or through audiobooks, or just using that time to actually catch up with a friend, that would be my example of good multitasking. The bad multitasking I'm talking about is probably more like trying to work on two projects at once, or trying to listen to an online training that you're supposed to be kind of focusing on and taking notes while also responding to emails. That kind of multitasking is just going to end up with not taking in all the stuff in the online training and making typos that you can't see in your emails, which I am very, very guilty of doing, I'm afraid. My brain, I don't know what goes on with my brain, but it's like my spelling is not bad at all. My typing is not very efficient, and I tend to bash the wrong keys. Sometimes I'm just like, my fingers are working in the wrong order and they bash them in the wrong order. And then when I go to read back what I have written, my brain sees what it thinks I have written, not what I have actually managed to bash into the keyboard with my fingers. So yeah, proofreading is a bit of an issue for me. So if I am also multitasking, I'm even more likely to allow those typing errors to slip through. And then when I look at them in the future, it's embarrassing because I can see them straight away when I can't remember exactly what I've written, because I've not just written it. So slight tangent, not a great deal to do with productivity, my typo issue, but I think it's just worth throwing out there and mentioning. But yeah, multitasking, it's a myth, people, it's a myth. So the next mistake that I think we all tend to make, at least from time to time, is lack of prioritization. We have a to-do list, and the list is not in any particular order. So we look at our list and we think, right, okay, I've got 20 things to do on this list. This, it just seems massive. So then we just pick off the easy wins. So the things on the list, some things might be like massive important things to do, but those things feel quite overwhelming to do because they are big and important. But maybe something on your list is small and easy. And it's easy to go through our list and then just pick out these small, easy wins. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for easy wins. When we're feeling overwhelmed, it is definitely better to do an easy win than to do nothing. There is a place for that when we are tired, when we are drained, when we're exhausted, when we need to be kind to ourselves. But on a day where we're kind of, we're running properly, we're functioning as we'd hope, not prioritizing is just going to be a real enemy of productivity. And by prioritizing can look like different things. It can look like eating the frog. And if you've been on any of my channels before, you will have heard me talking about eating the frog. It is a well-known, a lot of productivity gurus out there talk about it. It's a very well-known concept, but it's something that since I've implemented it in my life, it's made such a massive difference. I can't even tell you. So eating the frog would be a pretty gross thing to do, wouldn't it? If you've just got to eat a frog, you're looking at that frog and you think, I have to eat that. And you're worrying about having to do it all day. And you think, oh my goodness, I've got to eat that frog. That would hang over you. It's not something pleasant. It's not something you want to do, but it's something you've got to do. You are better off doing it first thing in the morning, so it is over and done with. It is behind you. It is done. So eating the frog can look like filing your account tax paperwork. So for me, that would be like a thing. It's not something I look forward to doing. It's something I have to do. It's something that if it's on my list, I look at it with dread, like, oh, I can't believe I've got to even do that, because it's just one of those tasks that is such a chore for me. All the kind of the numbersy accounting stuff. I wouldn't say I'm especially bad at maths, but it's just one of those things. I think we all have those things. You're like, ugh. You take my children, they're the opposite. Their maths homework, they're like, easy, let's do this first. I was always like, maths homework, oh no, it just bores me to tears. So I guess it's that fallout from school. Maths homework bores me to tears. Account stuff bores me to tears. But still we have to do it. So if we take those tasks, those yucky tasks that really are important, and we move those the first thing in the morning, we move those to the beginning of our workday, the beginning of our productive time, the spare time that we have to be productive, then those things are even done with, and we've prioritized them. We've not just picked off the easy wins. Now, this is why in my planner, I have got a planner store. You'll find all the details down in the description, but this is why in my planners I like to include, if you are listening to the audio version, you'll have to just click on the link in the description so you can go and have a little look in the planner store, because there are like flip through videos of all of the planners, so you can have a little look at them in the store. But if you're watching the video, you can see this right now, and this is an Eisenhower Matrix, so you're just gonna have to picture this in your mind's eye if you're listening. There are 4 boxes, and we've got important and not important, and then down the side we've got urgent and not urgent, and the things that we need to focus on first are the things that are both important and urgent. These are important in our lives, like they're going to make a difference to us. If we don't do them, it's going to be a problem. If we do them, our lives are going to improve, and they need to be done now. They need to be done. Urgent can look like, depends like what your planning looks like. If you're planning for the month, then this stuff has to be prioritized by the end of the month. If you're planning for the week, it has to be done this week. If you're planning for the day, it has to be done today. And then you've got urgent things that are not important. These are kind of like busy work tasks, filling out some consent form for your children to go to some trampoline, whatever, or, they've got to be done, but they're not like life-changing. They're just things that have to be done. Filling out some consent form for school, or I just keep going back to sort of mum-related tasks like that. But there are a lot of those that like mum life admin things. That would be like, it's got to be done today, but it's not life-changing. It's not important, but it is urgent. And then you've got things that are important but not urgent. So these are things that if you get through everything else on your list, those are the next things to be doing. So maybe it probably is important that I declutter my office, because ultimately it will make a difference to my working environment. Decluttering to me is important because it creates space in our home for other things to come in. If you have children, it is a very, it's a very sort of difficult process, decluttering, for it to be a one and done kind of thing. If you think of Marie Kondo, who wrote that original book, she did that series, I think it was The Magic of Tidying Up, The Magical Art of Tidying Up. And originally she was like, well, you do decluttering, you do this big, and it's one and done. And in theory, that's fantastic. In practice, when you have children and they grow in age and then they grow out of things and then they bring a lot of stuff home from school, a lot. And they are gifted things. You're not necessarily in control of what comes into your home, and there are things that come in for a season and then need to go. So decluttering to me is an important thing, but perhaps it's not urgent for this exact week. So that would go into important but not urgent. And then if it's not urgent, it's not important, those are the things you should not be doing right now, because there are other things that are more important. So if you are not prioritizing your to-do list, if you're not using, you don't have to use an Eisenhower Matrix, but I really, really like this method. This method helps me to organize my brain, and then you can take the tasks from your Eisenhower Matrix and you can move them. If you are using a planner, you can move them into the actual days, and you can allocate things per day of what there was one on the other page actually, of what you're going to do, what are your most important eat the frog tasks each day. And by prioritizing like this, then it just means that you're going to be as productive as possible, rather than being a busy fool and just running around being busy, if you see what I mean. So another thing that's ruining your productivity is procrastination. Now, some of us, hands up, I've got my hand up, if you can relate, think of ourselves a little bit sometimes as perfectionist, which I know goes against a little bit what I said earlier about having typos and things, which, yeah, it's a complicated thing. But sometimes we can think, oh, I don't know how to start this thing, so I'm just going to do some research about it. So this could be starting a new business. It could be starting a new form of exercise. Oh, I don't know if I know enough about running to start running. Oh, I don't know if I've got the right trainers. Oh, well, I definitely haven't got the right thing to wear. Maybe I should research the best routes. Should I research running on a treadmill versus running in a gym? Or should I join a gym? Should I visit some gyms? Or should I get a running buddy? Do I need a coach? Perhaps I need to learn about technique before I start. All of this is not perfectionism like we think it is in our brains. It's just procrastination. It's your brain thinking, oh, this makes me kind of uncomfortable starting this thing, so I'm going to put it off. And I'm going to use the excuse of, oh, it's not perfect yet, I don't know exactly how to do it, so I won't start at all. And I can't tell you how many times in life I've done that. And I am guessing some of you listening have done that too. If you are watching on YouTube, you can let me know in the comments. Have you ever done that? Is this something you're guilty of? If you are listening on a podcasting provider, you could let me know in a review, couldn't you? You could type the number of stars you're enjoying for this podcast. Hopefully 5, please. Hopefully 5 stars. And you can tell me the podcast episode that you're listening to, and let me know if any of these things have ever ruined your productivity. Right down there in the review. Okay, so interruptions can be a little bit of an enemy of productivity. And actually, I have found that since I've been working from home, which has been for a good number of years now, I've not worked in an office environment since, probably for 13 years now. But I know that I did used to struggle in like a big office setting where you've got other people talking to you, and you've got other people's phones ringing, and you've got, you're trying to get in flow with something, and there is just all the other noise and interruption. And I've got to say, now, having worked at home for a good number of years, how long have I been doing this business now? Since probably 7 years. Zara was very, very small when I started. And I find that being able to have peace to work at home makes such a difference for my productivity. This is especially highlighted in the difference between how much work I get done when the children are in school versus how much work I get done in the holidays. And even if my husband's home, even if he's not in the same room, I can hear him crashing around, it does make a difference. So I'm not saying that the only way to get anything done is to kick your entire family out the house, although it may help. But if you can minimize other distractions. So for example, one of our biggest distractions from getting things done, if you're studying, if you're working, if you're trying to do all the things, will be our mobile phones. And this has been a big one for me. So if you're on iPhone, if you're an Android user, I'm really sorry. I don't know anything about Androids. I'm really sorry. But if you're on iPhone, you can set up something called focus modes. And during these focus modes, you can tell your iPhone which distractions are and are not allowed in. So for example, I have a work focus mode, and during my work focus mode, I would only receive text message notifications from my children and my husband, in effect, and my auntie in case she needed me in an emergency, and text message notifications from teachers that I'm friends with at the school. So chances are those people would only be messaging me if they really needed me and it was an emergency. Anybody else's text messages would stay on my phone, but I would not get that notification until I actively went into my phone. So if I was having my lunch or after school. So WhatsApp is a big one. If you're a parent and you're on WhatsApp groups are both a blessing and a curse. They are a blessing because they're such a great way to stay in touch with other parents. They're such a great way to communicate about birthday parties. They're a fantastic way if your school is not great with communication to find out exactly what's going on with dressing up days and homework and all that kind of thing. But they can be such a curse because, I'm on, WhatsApp groups for Zara's year group, Zara's class. Bear in mind, because they're in split classes, so Zara's in year 2. She has a class teacher, so there's a class WhatsApp group, and then she has a year group that would go through every year. And then same for Bella. I'm on one for William. I am on one for dancing. I'm on one, there's a PTA. It's just, there's so many WhatsApp groups. And if you can't mute them, you're never going to get anything done. If every time your phone pings because of the class WhatsApp, someone's like, have you seen this shoe? And then other people go, no, sorry. You'd never get anything done. So you can mute all of those interruptions and distractions. I choose not to look at email while I'm trying to be productive. I choose not to look at email. I have email, doesn't actually get auto delivered to my phone. So it doesn't go ping, ping, ping. I can access email on my phone if I choose to under the fetch rather than push, which also saves battery incidentally, setting on the email, which is really helpful because I can still get my emails if I want them. But if every time I got a promotional email, my phone pinged, again, I'm not going to get anything done. I'm just not going to get anything done at all. I'll be like, oh, what's that? Oh, Bowden's got a sale on. Excellent. And then I'll be off down shopping for something for the girls. Not helpful at all. So yeah, interruptions are massive. If you're working from home, if you want to mute your Ring doorbell, because if every time a parcel is being dropped in your porch, that can be very distracting. And just perhaps notifying friends and family, like during these hours, and this can be a real challenge if you're working from home, I've got to admit. Like if you're in an office environment, I think people are quite understanding. It's like, I can't go, my boss is here. Can't talk, my boss is here. And people are like, oh, that's fine, don't worry. Whereas when you're working from home, you're just at home. So people that have never worked from home don't understand that you are in work just because you're at home. And they're like, oh, hi, just, phoning for da-da-da. It's like, oh, right, well, I'm working right now. Oh, okay. But they know you haven't got a boss breathing down your neck because you're at home. So they keep talking. And it's really, it can be quite challenging. So what I've taken to doing is if I get a phone call from a close friend or family member during working hours, rather than answering the phone as like, hi, how are you doing? And just launching into chat mode, then I either respond with a text message saying, sorry, can't talk right now because I'm working. Is everything okay? Or I answer the phone with, oh, hi, lovely. Is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, fine. Just calling for a chat. And then I can go in with, well, I'm really sorry. I'm working right now. Can I call you later? And I think it's very easy to worry about offending people, but people will ultimately understand. They would understand if you're in an office environment. They'll have to understand when you're working from home. So another problem that really makes people struggle with their productivity is poor time management. Now, I can be quite guilty of this. I think a lot of us can be. And especially since, at this point in time, you may or may not know, depending on which other episodes you've listened to, whether you've been following me on my main channel, I am waiting for an ADHD assessment, which is actually coming up very, very soon. And we will talk about that in depth. I think we talked in the last episode about that, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But in short, one of the difficulties I have is going off on tangents because I come up with an idea, something I really need to do, and then I'm like, oh, I want to go and enact this really great idea I just had. And it's such a challenge for me to be like, no, stop it, go back to what you're supposed to be doing. And that is why in my planner that is the current one from my planner store that I'm using day to day, I have 2 pages a day. And we've got half an hour increments, and then there is this massive note section. The purpose of this note section is for me to brain dump all of those things that come up while I'm working, and I have to say, no, Rhi, behave yourself and do what you're supposed to be doing, because otherwise my time management becomes so poor. I'm supposed to be doing this, then I'm off doing something else because I had this great idea and I just remembered this, and I didn't order that for school. And so if I have this idea, my ideas go in my notes, I can spider diagram, brain dump, whatever, and I know that it won't just have disappeared from my head. And if it's like, oh, I have to order this thing for school, it goes into my to-do list, and then I force myself to put down my pen and get back to my computer and carry on working. It doesn't always work, but it works more times than it doesn't since I've been using this system. The other thing that really can challenge your productivity when it comes to time management is not time blocking. And I'm not saying this is something that everyone has to do, but for me, it really makes sense in my brain. And the more I stick to this, the better. And there's the saying, a task expands as if to fit the time given. So if I give myself a whole day to edit a video, some videos do actually take that long, like my Disney ones, they do, but let's just take, a standard video. If I've got a whole day to do it, then I will potentially waste time and fill that whole day doing that. It will take that whole day. If, however, you've got a shorter amount of time and then you have to move on to something else, or you have to leave, you are going to be much more focused at getting that thing done. So if you think when you were in school and you had, maybe 5 lessons a day, and when you were in English, you were just doing English. You had your English book out, your English teacher is talking to you, and you're doing English. And then when you go to maths, you only have your maths book out, and your maths teacher is talking to you, and you're just doing maths. So when you're in that time blocking, because that's in effect what a timetable is, you're having your time blocked by those lessons, and all you're doing in that lesson is that subject. If we can do that in our lives, we can be so much more efficient. There is no good being in a maths lesson and trying to finish your English homework. You're not going to do anything very well. You're not going to absorb the maths. You're not going to do the English, which I guess comes back to multitasking. But again, apologies if you're listening, but I'm holding up my Organised Life and Gratitude Planner, but you can check out the link down in the description of the podcast if you're interested in having a look. But basically, this has got half-hour time increments. And what I like to do is to try and it's only a guesstimate because some tasks can run over, but I like to say, right, I'm going to do, for example, today I'm recording a podcast and that's going to be in this time block. And then in the next time block, it's going to be editing that, getting it uploaded, all the thumbnails and all the fiddly bits done. Then after that, I know I've got to do a voiceover for a speed clean for my main channel. So there is a block of time where I'm doing that, then a block of time after that. And by doing these blocks, you can do this in a planner, you can do it on a calendar, like we use for our family calendars, just the Apple calendars. A lot of people use Google calendars because it's universal, it doesn't matter which device you're using. And you can actually block in, you could call it just time block 1, time block 2. And then you could, if you use a paper planner like I do, because I like to use my calendar as more like this is the stuff that has to happen. So I've got recurring reminders in there for swimming, for school pickup, for all the things. And then you can choose to put in your calendar time block 1, time block 2. And then if you are using a paper planner, you can just write what you're actually going to do in those time blocks. You could set alarms so right, you've got 5 minutes to the end of the next time block, get the thing finished. But ultimately, if you are not managing your time properly, your productivity is sadly going to suffer. Another problem, especially I would say for women and especially for mums, that's really going to impact your productivity is overload and just taking on too much. I think so many of us, again, speaking for myself, but let me know if you feel the same, have real problems with people pleasing, saying no to things. And your boss is like, you could do this extra thing, right? And you're like, yeah, no problem. You know, the PTA asked you to do something like, yeah, no problem, I can do that, because you just don't want to say no. You're asked for a favor from a friend or family member to just do this little thing. It's easy for you, you know, just squeeze it in. You're like, yeah, no problem. Taking on too much will ultimately just tip that balance over so that your productivity suffers across the board. I know I should have looked this up before actually, but I can remember reading a study where there was like a tipping point where if people did over a certain amount of hours, and I guess it would be a different number for each individual human, but when people move over a certain amount of hours of work, they don't actually achieve anymore because they're trying to do too much, and their productivity decreases so much in every hour they're working just by working those initial hours and pushing them into overload and exhaustion. So I think it's about learning what your personal set point is, knowing that when you're doing too much, even when you're sitting down doing focused productive work, you're not going to be doing as well. And learning that for yourself can be so valuable. And I know I'm really guilty of taking on too much. I'm guilty of just not knowing my limits. I'm definitely guilty of that. But it does ruin productivity. So I'm going to work on that, and I hope that you can too. Perfectionism, we did touch on this in with procrastination, didn't we? But we're going to talk about it again just because I feel it's so important. Striving for perfection, and I'm so polarized with this. I'm either so paralyzed by wanting things to be perfect that I can't start things or I can't finish them, or I think as a knee-jerk reaction to overcome perfectionism, I am very much like, that'll do, next. So for example, the names of all of my channels, I am fully aware that they are not the best. So I've got Mummy of Four UK, which I think I was trying to put keywords in there that people might have been searching for. I can't remember, it was a long time ago. But I wanted to share about mum life and organisation and productivity. And I thought, well, if people know I've got 4 children, then they're going to know that I'm going to have to be dealing with all that. So I couldn't come up with a name. I couldn't come up with a name I liked enough. I am aware that it's not the best name. I probably could have come up with a better name. I probably still could have done. I probably should change it. But it came to a point where I was just like, I could procrastinate and never ever start this. This could be 10 years down the line. I could be like, the name for my channel just hasn't quite come to me yet. So it's not perfect. I'm not going to do it. So it was very much a case of slap a name on it and get started. You could always change it later. I haven't done, but you could. Very similar thing happened with my Disney channel, which is, at the time of filming, my Disney channel is turning 3 years old in a couple of days. 3 years. My little baby channel. If you are not familiar, then I have a Disney channel where my family and I go on Disney trips. We share all the organisation tips, all the planning tips, and the packing, and then the vlogs, which are absolutely jam-packed full of tips for just making the most of your magical trips, especially if you have any autism, any other neurodivergence in your family, any additional needs. So all those tips are shared, and just generally if you just enjoy a little bit of Disney magic. So yeah, little plug for my Disney channel. That's Mummy of Four Does Disney. Again, the name, not perfect. I wanted it to be something related to my main channel so people knew they were linked. And I've sort of shoved Does Disney on the end of it. And I was like, well, that's fine, slap a name on it and get started, because otherwise I'm never going to do it. So I'm very much either that'll do, let's go, or oh, I could dither about this for the rest of my life and never get going. And I think, I don't know, action has got to be better than inaction. It does cause me to perhaps put things out that are far less than perfect, but ultimately, what is perfect? I think perfection is something, it's like an unachievable standard, and sometimes done is better than best. So if your perfectionism anyway is actually just a little white lie you're telling yourself because you're procrastinating, then it's definitely getting in the way of your productivity. So another one is just basically the lack of planning. If you're not planning, then you're not going to be able to be as productive. If you, for example, you're not planning to work on a certain day, and you sit down to do some work and you're like, oh, what should I be doing now? Then you're going to dither wasting that time wondering what you should be doing because you've not planned it out. If it's planned out and you've got an hour, now this is especially important especially if you're a mum and you're trying to fit lots of productive things into very short times. So when I first started my business, Zara was tiny. She was a very small baby. So I could only work basically when she was asleep. So I could work during her nap times and after she went to bed. So that time had to be so focused. I did not have time to sit there going, I wonder what I should be doing now. What should I be doing? What should I be doing next? I had to plan it. So I'd plan it while she was awake so that when I had that time, that kind of nap time hustle culture type thing, then I knew what I was doing. But really a lack of that planning is just really, really going to impact your productivity more than you could possibly imagine. And another one that's really going to be problematic is tiredness. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, my brain just cannot function. It's like my brain is like my iPhone and it puts itself in low power mode. And there are certain things it's like, no, we're not doing that because we're in low power mode. So the screen is dimmed. It's not, fetching email. It's just, it shuts down all but the basic functions to keep me going. And that is what happens when I'm tired. And I've got to say, when we came back from Florida last and I had jet lag, it just reminded me so much of the newborn stage where I was like, whoa, I just feel, I think stupid's the right word, but just like my brain is on low power mode. Like I can't fully turn it on. I cannot get it to work properly because I'm that tired, and tiredness will do that to you. So ultimately, if you want to be more productive, you need to get better sleep, better quality sleep. You need to be more rested. So sleeping is not normally associated with, well, I want to be more productive. To bed I go. But if you invest that time in making sure that you've got a good routine to get you off to sleep efficiently, to make sure you're staying asleep, you're avoiding trigger foods and drinks that keep you awake, you've got a good bedtime routine, your bedroom is the right temperature, it's sufficiently dark, you're not having noises and interruptions. Difficult if you've got children, granted. But if you can do everything you can to minimize that tiredness, ultimately, you are going to be 1 trillion times more productive. I mean, at least 1 trillion. Now, I've got a lot more of these that I need to share, but we're going to have to save those for a future episode. So make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, to the YouTube channel with bell notifications on. Leave me a comment down in the description as to which of these, not down the description even, is it? Just down the comments. Don't know why I said that. Leave me a comment down in the comments. My links will be in the description. Your comments are in the comments. See, I'm probably a little tired. It's making me less productive because I'm kind of talking rubbish. But basically, yeah, leave me a comment down below and let me know which of these have actually ruined your productivity. Which of these are you guilty of? Probably been unconsciously guilty of. I know I have done, I think, most of these, and sometimes I still struggle with them on a daily basis. But thank you for tuning in to an episode, Real Talk with Rhi, another episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.